Hello everybody and welcome back to Redacted. Today I've got some posts from r/EntitledParent, so let's hop right into it. First up, we've got another entitled parent that tries to assault the OP, but ends up in the hospital instead. This story starts out in the parking lot of a grocery store. I had just gotten my driver's license as well as a new car, so I was feeling pretty good about driving it around. I was finally feeling independent. So as I'm grabbing my shopping cart to head into the store, I hear some little brat whining about something, and I turn my head to see the entitled mom and her young son stepping out of a nice and expensive looking BMW. She walked up to me and asked me for my shopping cart, which I declined because I had already put a coin in it. If you're not in an area that has these, some shopping carts are locked up and you need to put in a coin to be able to use it. You'll get your coin back as long as you lock the cart in the appropriate place after you finish shopping. Anyway, she just frowned, waved it off, and muttered something to herself, while I locked up my car and headed into the store. Now while I'm trying to shop, I could hear the bratty kid complaining about every little thing around the store. But it all really started to go south when I wanted to treat myself to some beer, a bottle of wine, and some cigarettes. For the record, it is legal for 19-year-olds here in Germany. Now the sections for the wine and the beer and the cigarettes are all close to the cash register for obvious reasons. And the particular wine bottle that I had chosen to grab happened to be the last of its kind. I put it in my cart and almost instantly hear the "Ahem," followed by an "I wanted that bottle, young man." Guess who? It was the entitled mother from before. Now I've always been a confrontational person, but I was more polite in my way of not backing down. So I turned around and did the only reasonable thing. I said it was first come, first serve, and that she could ask the cashier if they had more bottles in the back. For some reason, my completely reasonable response made her completely freak out, followed by something along the lines of, "I'm a single mother and I'm in a hurry. Give me that bottle. I deserve it much more than you. You're too young for such stuff anyway. Does your social worker know what you're doing with your money? Getting drunk on the taxpayer's dime?" Now I was pretty gobsmacked. Who does she think she is? But I was still trying to be polite in a hopeless effort to defuse the situation. I told her, I'm in the process of graduating school. How would I be on social aid? But that just made her angrier for some reason. "Go do something with your life, you alcoholic. Only failures and people on welfare drive such low-level cars." She was referring to the car keys, which were half-heartedly hanging out of my jeans pocket. She tried to reach for the bottle, slap my hand, and even tried to yank my shopping cart away. At that point, I pulled my shopping cart back and told her to leave me alone and get away from me. But she did the opposite. And everything happened pretty fast after that. She lunged forward and tried to take a wild swing at my face, which I managed to block by basically smacking her hand away. I had taken a couple of years training in judo. I'm not an expert by any means, but you don't forget the basic moves. Now before someone could step in and stop her, she had already tried to swing at me again. This time I grabbed her wrist with one hand, her sleeve with the other, and I threw her over my back and onto the ground using her own momentum. This was another move I had learned in judo. However, she landed pretty badly on her backside and got pretty hurt from it, so an ambulance and the police were called. At this point, she was curled over in agony on the ground and screaming bloody murder while people started to come over. A cashier had supposedly seen the whole thing, and there were cameras, which somewhat unnerved me. I had never had contact with the police before, and I didn't know what would happen, even though I knew I hadn't technically done anything wrong. So cue the arrival of the ambulance and the police, as well as her supposed brother who came to pick up the little brat. The police took everyone's statements, and I was still pretty unnerved. The fact that this woman was still screaming bloody murder and was trying to threaten everyone with a lawsuit wasn't exactly helping the situation. Eventually, she was carried off in an ambulance because there was something wrong with her hip. They couldn't tell me the exact information, but the hard fall onto her backside seemed to have done some kind of damage to her hip. In the end, the police told me that nothing would really come of her threats, and that I could press charges if I wanted to. But I didn't think it was necessary. A trip to the hospital should be a good enough lesson. I just didn't want to commit the time, effort, and money into a lawsuit when I should be focusing on graduation. I did end up getting an employee discount at the checkout though as an apology for experiencing the attempted assault. To this day though, I haven't heard from the entitled mom or her lawyer. Next we've got a guy that tries to steal a taxi cab from a disabled woman. My mother is disabled and uses a wheelchair, so we're often given extra help when we're navigating airports. We usually leave her personal wheelchair at home when we fly. It's a real pain trying to transport it, and our extended family has a spare chair for her to use whenever we visit. So one time while we were waiting for a cab, we were told that she could be put at the front of the line since my mother was using one of the airport wheelchairs. They try to free those up as soon as possible for other disabled travelers who might need them. The skycap, who's like a bellhop but for airports, took our luggage so that I could push my mom in the wheelchair while he took us to the front of the line. The airport was near Washington, D.C. in Maryland, so they have different taxi services depending on whether you want to go into the city or out into the further reaches of Maryland. The skycap took us to the very front of the line and asked us where we were going. We were going into the city, so he walked away so he could find us a free cab from the back of the line. We did not steal a cab from anyone that had been waiting in line. Next to us was an entitled dad with 2 little girls. The dad looked pretty mad and kept shooting me and my mom dirty looks. My mom was pretty tired from the traveling, and normally probably would have given up her cab to appease this clown, but I really wasn't having it. The skycap led our cab past the lineup of all the other cabs and gestured for it to pull up in front of us. Immediately, the entitled family tries to cut past us and the dad starts loading up his luggage while his wife and kids just avoid eye contact with us and hop into the car. I was in disbelief. I expected the skycap to say something, but he just stood there looking uncomfortable. So instead, I hopped in. Excuse me, that's our cab.
We were in line first.
Right, but we were taken to the front of the line because my mother is disabled. I'm sure you can see that.
My family has been waiting 15 minutes for this cab.
Okay, well the skycap brought this taxi over to us specifically. He just turned to the cabbie and ignored me.
Where are you headed?
We'd like to go to the outskirts of Maryland.
I'm sorry, sir, this cab only goes to DC. You'll have to get another one.
I gave him the smuggest look I could muster. I helped my mom into the car while he had to unload all of his luggage. The skycap didn't bother to help him, and neither did his wife. Then the skycap started loading up our bags, while the entitled dad tried to haul his luggage back to the next cab. He could have just waited in line for another 30 seconds and gotten the next cab, but instead, someone else grabbed it while he was busy being a prick. Well, that's all I got for today, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. Go ahead and leave a like, subscribe, and share a comment below, and I'll see you next time.